What's up, gang? Welcome to The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now listen, The Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi, as I say, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of The Greatness Machine. I'm my host, Darius Mirshahzadeh, and I'm flying solo here, and this is part two of how I became a happy person. And so if you missed last week's solo, I recommend go listen to last week's solo because this is a multi-part series where I'm talking about something really personal that happened to me a couple years ago, to be 3 years ago in July. And I was in Oaxaca, Mexico with my family. And again, go listen to last week's solo. This is a continuation of that. And I'm going to pick up where I left off there. So as I mentioned, I had this day in Oaxaca, and I was, it was amazing, man. I gave myself permission. I said, who's going to live in my emotional house? It's going to be happiness and joy and gratitude. And I'd read the book by Ed Milet, The Power of One More. And I was doing one mores all day, one more hug for my kids and one more handhold with my wife. And, one more just like moment to be grateful for the things that I had going on in my life, and just really like resonating in this space of being present and not really going into that world of past or future, letting the ego take over, and really focusing on being present with myself and my loved ones. And it was great. And so I gave myself that gift, and it was an all day on a Friday, July 15, 2022. And so I said, fuck it, let's do another day. And one day turned into two, turned into three. I think I made it 6 days in a row of like just living with great like emotions in my emotional house. It wasn't until like Wednesday or Thursday of like the next week where like something, I got sideswiped and went, kind of tailspin a little bit. But even then it was like a pretty quick rebound. I got back to where I was, like the previous few days pretty quickly. And it was really cool. Like I had this thing where like I had been anxious for so long, and ruminating and, not, carrying around this emotional baggage around, what had gone wrong in my life and what I could have done better, and just beating myself up. And here I was for this like few day period, and like, man, shit was great. It was like, I was like, man, like, is it really this easy? So like, and I didn't question it too much. I'm like, I'm not going to question it. Like, thank you. So today's episode is really about what happened next, because you would think like, hey, that's pretty awesome, man. Like, that's what happened to you. Like, good for you. And I might have mentioned this in the last episode, but I'm gonna, if I didn't, I'll mention it right now. I'm a believer that, if there's a higher power. I believe there is one. If there is one, it kind of gives me my teachings when I need them, and it does it through books. And in the last episode, I talked about how The Power of One More was this book that really led to this moment in my life where I literally released all this emotional baggage around, envy and greed and anger and fear. And I just embraced like being present and being grateful and being happy and letting positive joy, gratitude, love, just live in my emotional house. And here I was like a few days into that. And I was up in my room in our house in Oaxaca. And again, kind of going through the same process. And as I mentioned in the last episode, I didn't really have access. Like the internet didn't work that well. The Wi-Fi didn't work that well. During the day, like I was on 3G, so I wasn't able to really access much in the way of Wi-Fi services, or excuse me, like just like cell service for anything more than making phone calls and texting. So I had all the space. But at nighttime, I would be able, like the Wi-Fi worked better. Maybe there's less people on it. I could actually access my social. And so I'm on Instagram and I'm just kind of peeking around, and I see Lewis Howes interviewing this guy that I didn't know. And I didn't recognize him. I didn't know who he was. And when I say his name, some of you are going to laugh. And he's talking about I don't remember the exact subject, but it was something that seemed really smart. And it was something around managing your fear and managing your emotions. And here I am, like kind of going through that I'm having that moment in my life. And I look him up, and his name is Dr. Joe Dispenza. Now, some of you are like, duh, Darius, this guy's like world renowned, person around like personal growth. I'd never heard of him before. I didn't know who he was. I literally had no idea. I'm like, oh, he's a doctor? What kind of doctor? I have no idea who this guy is. I know some of you are chuckling right now. If you don't know who he is, I recommend checking him out. This guy's like kind of does some cool stuff. And so I again was on this reading kick. My goal was to read, that 2022 was 22 books in 2022. I ended up at 35 books. And I had a process around this. So I said, I wonder if he's written any books. So I would go look on Amazon, and he's written a bunch of books. And the first book I see that he's read is You Are the Placebo. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? And it's basically that like through your thoughts, you can cure yourself of disease, which maybe there's some truth to that. But I was like, well, I don't really have that problem. So I start reading the titles of his books that have a lot of, ratings and high scores. And I come across a book. The title says, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And I was like, shit, that's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to break the habit of being myself. Myself has like been like kind of not that great, like there's obviously great things about me, but I was, going through this time period of like really like ruminating on my life and not really happy with what was going on. And I wanted to break that habit. And so I did the same thing I did as I talked about in the previous episode around the power of one more. I turn on the book. I listen. I did a lot of audiobooks, and I started listening to the book, and I'm voraciously taking notes. Now, it's a much bigger book than The Power of One More. And so it takes me about a week to get through the book. Now, mind you, this is my last week in Oaxaca. So I'm just devouring this book. And I'm not going to tell you what the book's all about, but you can read the book. But it's really around like really our thoughts control our emotions, and our emotions control like the reality that we have in our life, and sends out vibrations into the world, and that we create these neural pathways. Yes, here I am telling you what the book's all about. We create these neural pathways and these reactions, these habits of who we become, and our emotions become habitual, right? And we really kind of carve into our psyche these neural pathways and these reactions and these emotions, and we start to like become kind of even addicted to them. And for me, I had created these emotions around fear and anxiety and ungratefulness and anger, and they were all kind of really present for me. And and they're habitual to a certain degree. I felt comfort in being anxious because at least it would put me on guard, and then I would start to problem solve. I get into my monkey brain, and I get to work. And so I'm reading the book, and I'm like, it's a great book. I took a ton of notes, and I was very clear that I wanted to get out of this fear mindset. And so I was in the Dallas airport on our way home from Oaxaca after spending a month there. We lived there for the month of July in 2022. And I'm finishing the book. And the last couple chapters of the book, Dr. Joe gives these meditations you can do. And it's a 4-week guided meditation. Now, you may not know this about me, but I like my voice a lot, and I listen to my own podcasts, and I entertain myself. So I decided when I got home, this is the first week of August, I was going to record these 4-week guided meditation in my own voice and record it on my phone. And I was going to start doing it. So I did that. I get home, and I read them very slowly, and ends up being about 8 minutes per meditation. And week 1 of the meditation is induction. So I induce myself, which is kind of just getting in your body. So every day for week 1, I lay down and turn on my phone, and I have a recording of myself doing this induction meditation, and I do it. And it was great. It was like, all right, cool. Like, kind of getting relaxed and getting in my body, and, trying to be present, monkey mind's kind of running around, but just controlling my breathing and just enjoying the meditation. And week 2, and then we start week 2. So the way it worked was I would do week 1, and then I get to week 2. Week 2, I would do week 1, and then I would do week 2. So 8 minutes of week 1, induction, 8 minutes of week 2, which is what is the emotion that you want to stop, like break the habit of. So I would do week 1, I do induction. Week 2 is induction and breaking the habit. And I do that one. Mine's around fear. I want to stop being so fearful. I want to manage that emotion. And it's kind of a fill in the blank, the way that meditation works. So I do that 8-minute meditation around, stopping being fearful. Then I get to week 3. And week 3 is, if you're standing up, sit down, because I don't want you to fall over when I tell you this story, because it's kind of a crazy story. It really happened to me. You may not believe it when I'm done telling you this story, but it's all truthful. I'm at least, and I'm a sane person. I'm not. I was not on drugs with what I'm about to tell you. I was sober, and this is the first thing in the morning when I would do my meditation. I do it laying down in bed, which I know you, like meditators who are hardcore meditators, like, yo, you shouldn't do that, Darius. I like to do that. And so I do week 1 of the meditation. In week 3, which is I do the first meditation, which is my induction, 8 minutes of induction. Then I do 8 minutes of breaking the habit of fear in my life. And then I do week 3, and I won't tell you what it is quite yet, because I'm going to tell you what happened, because there's a part in week 3 towards the end of it, and it's around surrender. And it's around surrendering to a higher intelligence. So I need to preface this by saying that I am not a religious person. I was not. My father was Muslim. My mother was brought up Catholic. They were both against religion. My father moved to the United States because Islamic fundamentalists took over Iran, and it forced our family to come to the States. Even though I was born here, we lived there then. This is during like the Iranian hostage crisis. And my dad was pretty angry at like the religion of his religion, the religious folks in this country, and he was kind of anti-religious. He would become religious when people died or something like that, but more or less he was anti-religion. My mom was brought up Catholic, and she was anti-religion too. And so I grew up in a household that was not religious at all, like zero. Like I had a lot of friends growing up who were Mormon and Christian. They go to church with them, but I didn't really like connect with it. So I didn't have any like religious like background. For me, like I was a believer in God. I believe in God. I believe that you should be a good person and do good things and put positive energy out in the world and that there's a higher. I do believe that there's a higher power that we might answer to. But that's about the extent of my spiritual connection at that point in my life. And so week 3 is around surrendering to a higher intelligence. And I thought about it and I was like, no, what the heck? Sure. Like, because what's been working for me hasn't been working for me. So I'm in the middle of week 3 and I'm laying there and it's a guided meditation again. 8 minutes induction, 8 minutes breaking the habit of fear, 8 minutes of surrender to the higher intelligence. And there's a way that this guided meditation goes, and you can look it up. You can buy the book. It's in there. And anyone who's listening to this can do what I did. And there's a part in the meditation where I guide myself and I say, and now surrender to the higher intelligence. And even as I just said right now, I had kind of like a weird somatic reaction. And as whatever you believe in, I'm going to say this and you can believe this or not, as God is my witness, I felt this energy come in through my crown, like the back of my head, and enter my body. And I'm not like, and it was like this like thing, this energy entered my body and went right into my heart. Right when I said, and now surrender to higher intelligence. And I just surrendered. There's this feeling of just release. And what I'm about, and which right now, everything I'm saying is crazy to hear me say it, but I surrendered right then. And I felt this energy enter my heart and start pulling me off the bed. Like kind of like, it's like this pulling. It was like just kind of pulling me up. And it lasted, I don't know, it felt like 20 or 30 seconds. It may have been less than that, but I felt it. And I was like, and then there was a release at the end of the meditation, because it's towards the end of the meditation. And I fell back on the bed. I wasn't pulled off the bed, but I was being pulled off the bed by this power. And I'm laying there and I'm like, I'm by myself. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, holy fuck. I think I literally said that. I'm like, what the hell just happened to me? And I stood up after a few minutes. I'm really bewildered at this point. I'm like, I don't know what just happened to me. And as I'm saying right now, I'm getting kind of emotional because it's like I'm remembering it. And I walk out of my bedroom and I walk into the kitchen. My wife Mariah is standing there, and I go up to her and I tell her, I'm like, you're not gonna believe what just happened to me. Actually, let me take a step back here. That is not what happened. stood up. I walk out of my bedroom. Sorry, I'm forgetting this happened. This is a really important part of the story. And all of a sudden, I had this huge release. And I just started bawling. And I'm not a crier. Okay, I'm like kind of a tough guy. If you know me, you know I'm very sensitive, but I'm a bit of a tough guy. I'm kind of a hard ass, and I don't cry. Like I'm a person that kind of like, some people are like, oh, I have a hard time throwing up. I'm like, I don't, but I have a hard time crying. But when I cry, I will cry. I'll let myself cry. And I was just overcome with emotion, and I just start like ugly crying. And it was like years and years of just like, I don't know, frustration, anger. It's just all released out of me, and I'm fucking bawling. And my kids are like not there. My wife's not there. Like no one's around me. I'm by myself, and it's just like fucking just released. Just start just bawling. Just a huge release out of my whole like system. And I take a breath, and I'm like, oh, what the hell just happened to me? Like this is all within like a couple minutes. A energy, God entered my body, entered my heart, filled my heart up with energy, pulled me off the bed, levitated me for some period of time that was more than a couple seconds. Let's go of me. I stand up and I get this massive release. And I know listeners are gonna be like, "What, Darius? This is a crazy story." And I'm telling you, it is a crazy story, and it all happened to me. I walk into the kitchen, and my wife's standing there. And she sees me. She's like, what's going on? Are you okay? And I tell her what happened. And she gives me this like really, really like kind of weird look. And I'm like, listen, I just need you to give me a hug right now. And so she gives me a hug, and I start crying again. And I'm just like, I was just tired. I was just tired of being myself. Like I was breaking the habit of being myself. I was doing what the book said. I was just tired. I was tired of just beating myself up, and tired of just showing up every day and like not being good enough, and like grinding and grabbing a hold as hard as I possibly could to try to like control every single outcome of my life, and not feeling like I got what I wanted. And it was my ego was just like done. And I told her what happened, and she just kind of like, she obviously believed me, but it was a little weird. Like, she's not a very religious person either. So, she's spiritual. She believes in God, but neither of us, it's like, we don't go to church or anything like that. So there's nothing for us to like latch onto. I can be like, oh, this is like a Jesus moment or something like that. Like that wasn't part of this conversation. But it was like, it happened and it was done. Now, what happened next is even more interesting. The same exact thing that happened that day happened again and again every single morning when I did my meditation for the next like almost, I think it was like 3 weeks straight. And it was just as intense for probably like 2 weeks. Every day I'd be laying there and now surrender to the higher intelligence. And I feel this like energy under me come into my heart, pull me off the bed. I started getting used to it. I was like, all right, it's like I get some time with the higher intelligence. God's like spending some time with me. It's like, this is probably real. And like, it was like, I mean, real. Like, this is not me like just like making shit up. And would release me. And after like a few days, I was like, maybe I've been doing this all wrong. Maybe I need to really reconsider like how I've been showing up. Because how I've been showing up is I've been showing up trying to control every single little thing. And what if? And ask you this question to put to yourself: what if you're not in control? What if I'm not in control? What if I've been doing this all wrong? What if I've been trying to control every little thing? My monkey brain's trying to like control everything and control every outcome and make sure that like I don't get hurt, and make sure that like I don't lose money, and yeah, I'm gonna try to show up and be my best self, but I'm gonna really try to control every little thing and engineer this outcome I want. But what if I'm not in control? Because I was really clear on one thing. I've been white knuckling it so damn hard. You need to see my hands right now. White knuckling it so damn hard And at that point, this is 2022, like at least 25 years. I've been doing it since I was a teenager. And over and over and over and over again, I was disappointed with the outcome. Almost every time. Even when I would get what I wanted, I would be disappointed. Because I would just kind of like shrug it off and move on. And so I was like, well, this is no way to live. I'm white knuckling this. I'm trying to control everything. Even if I get what I want, I'm not happy. Most of the time I don't, I'm dissatisfied. I mentioned in the last episode, people would call me chronically dissatisfied. And I just wiped my hands of it. I said, I'm done. I'm done with living this way. Because I was sure of one thing. I was sure that the way I'd been living those last 20 plus years was not how I wanted to live the next 20 plus years. And what I was doing wasn't working for me. I had hit rock bottom. I thought I had hit rock bottom before this, when things had happened in my life and it was really hard. But I had really hit rock bottom. The reason I hit rock bottom is because I kind of had everything I wanted in my life and I was still unhappy, still anxious, still scared. And I just decided that this was like a sign. This was a sign for me to like not ignore. So I'm going to leave you with that. And part 3 will be, what did I do with that information? Because what I did next with that information truly transformed my life. And it's a gift that I'm looking forward to giving you in next week's episode of The Greatness Machine. I know this all sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, so this is my truth. I'm not making it up. And hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, peace out, everybody. We love you.
She's my lover.
You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on, so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers. And after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
She's my lover.